Hello everybody and welcome back to SkySaga Alpha 8. We're over here on the tutorial island. It is time for another tutorial Tuesday. So today we are actually going to be looking at placing things down exactly where you want them. Now this can be used for a whole bunch of things, but the most common ones, the ones that you're probably going to want to use this actually for, are armor stands, like what I've got here. This is a very simple example, and I didn't really have any good decor recipes to sit underneath it, but something like a nice pillar piece is going to work really, really well as a stand for an armor piece. And then the second most common thing that you're probably going to want to use this for is sharp rock shrines. Now, sharp rocks, if you don't know, if you don't have any sharp rocks on an island at all, when you spawn in, one gets put into your inventory just absolutely every time. And this can get a little bit annoying and a little bit frustrating, so it's best to set up a little shrine and use that shrine to kind of stop that effect from happening to you and anybody who comes along and visits your island. Now, of course, to do this, you actually want your armor piece or your sharp rock or whatever you're putting down centered around a block, just so that it looks nice and it looks like it's actually supposed to be sitting where it is sitting. Now, to do this, what you're going to need is at the very least, you're going to need 9 blocks. You're then also going to need whatever item it is that you'd like to throw down, and then one of these items. Now, these are just a short list of items that I've currently put together. This can be done with other things, but because the mailbox is in here, there is something in this list that anybody can get their hands on. So I've got the mailbox, a grate, the question table, and I'm not really sure, I'm definitely pronouncing that wrong. And then, of course, we have a rope down the bottom here. Now, these guys, like I said, they're all relatively common recipes, and everybody should have a mailbox somewhere along the lines. So to get this thing started, first of all, you're going to need to know where you want to put your block or place down your item. So this only works for something to above a floor level. I mean, you could fill in the floor level in underneath afterwards, but you need to know the block, and then you need to have at least one block down from that, just to start with. So right now, we're going to try and place into this block here that I've just filled up with a piece of stone. Now, to get started, what you need to do is you need to create a small structure just like this. So 6 blocks, you just need 2 here, 2 there, and 2 there. Then you want to come around, jump up to the top here, place 1 more block here, 1 block there, and 1 block there. Now, this is the very basic structure for everything we're going to do, and the reason that this is so useful is that when you have 2 blocks in front of you, 2 blocks to the side, 2 blocks to the other side, and 2 blocks directly above you, when you drop an item, it is going to land at your head height, which is very, very important for making sure that an object stays where you want it to stay. Now, the final thing here is that your character in SkySaga is actually just slightly smaller than a block space. So as you can see, I can kind of move back and forth inside this block space, and that means that if I'm all the way over this side and I drop an item, it's going to be off-center. Same thing for the other side, it's going to be off-center in the other direction. So to fix this, we're going to need a way of centering ourselves inside this space. Now that's where all of these decor items come in. Now, the mailbox, you're going to need to dig a little deeper than the rest of these, but what you need to do from here is knock out the block that you're going to be standing on, and you want to put down a block 1 below. Now, this is for any item other than the mailbox, something other than the well, when you're using the mailbox, you actually need to go 2 down so that you can actually manage to fit the mailbox in and have it sit below the floor level. So here you go. This is what I'm talking about. This is the mailbox sitting in below the floor level. Now, once you have your mailbox in or your decor item, and I'll show you the rest of the decor items in just a minute, what you want to do is face directly down, and you'll hit this kind of bottom point where your character will not face down anymore. And you want to try and square up as much as you possibly can, and then you want to center 1 axis at a time. So as you can see, I've now kind of centered across the mailbox line, and now I need to center back and forth. So I need to just go up and down a little bit. So it's a very touchy technique, and you literally are just small, tiny little presses of your keys will get just little bits of movement. But With a little bit of practice or a little bit of patience, you can center yourself pretty well in a spot. As you can see, I'm pretty centered here, so I've kind of, and I can't really move my mouse right now, but I have aimed for the center of the little piece that has the flag on it, and I've also aimed for the center line of the mailbox. Now, once you're in this configuration, before you touch anything else, open your rucksack, because once you've opened your rucksack, you are locked into place and your character is locked into place, and that is perfect. That is exactly what you want. Now you can drop the items that you need to drop. So in this case, we're going to drop out our sharp rock so that we can make up a little sharp rock shrine. Once you've dropped the item out, it should appear floating around your head, and if we can zoom out a little bit, you should see that there we go, we have the sharp rock floating around at my head height. Now all I need to do is escape out of my rucksack, and you can see that we have the sharp rock floating in midair. Now the final piece of this puzzle is you want to look down and just kind of creep up to this line until you just see the hit and hold E to pick up the decor item that is down there, and then you should be able to pick that up without disturbing the object that you have just painstakingly placed down. Of course, once you've now pulled the letterbox out of the way, you can fix up the ground, place down whatever you'd like your object to be sitting on, and remove your crafting blocks that we've placed around here. So there we go. Now we have a nice little sharp rock shrine, and that sharp rock is very nicely centered over top of that block. So like I said, I could put any decor item I absolutely wanted to under there, but for now we are just going to leave a small blue block down there. So here's another little setup I crafted earlier. So this is just the one deep one, and so this I'm going to use to show off these last three techniques. So the grate, the table, and the rope. Now the rope is kind of easiest or hardest depending on how you think about things and how easy it is for you to kind of center yourself on this object. The table is kind of the second hardest, and then the grate is actually not too bad. It's a pretty easy little task to do. So if we put down the rope first, as you can see, when we place down the rope, we can actually walk onto here. So once again, this is the same technique. We literally just kind of square ourselves up as best we can, and then try and center as absolute best we can by just using very, very small presses of the keys to get just tiny little bits of movement. Now this is what I also mean about this rope technique being quite tricky. Because there are no parallel lines on the edge of this rope, it can be quite difficult to actually work out whether or not you're lined up correctly. Now I think I'm kind of sort of there, but this one is, like I said, just a little bit more difficult to know if you are actually there. But once again, once you have something you're pretty happy with, you can then drop out a piece of armor or whatever you like, whatever you want to place down, and that it is. There it is, done and dusted, dropped down. So once again, the technique is pretty similar for all of these things. So I'm going to quickly place down the table. We'll do this again with the table. So once again, we're going to walk in here, we're going to straighten ourselves up. We might as well even try to line up a little bit with that before we go in, and then that way we can just try and work out the other axis. Now once again, the table is kind of a little bit more complicated because your lines that you're aiming for to center yourself with are a little bit further out, and so it's a little bit of a kind of try to focus on a couple of different points at once to try and get this centered correctly. Once again though, once you've got the center correct, you just grab an object and drop it out. You should see that that is also then centered up around your one block space. And finally, of course, is the grate. So the grate is actually a pretty cheap recipe. It's a pretty easy recipe to get your hands on. It does keep coming up in the settler's shop. Basically, all you need to do is buy the grates and tables or something. There is a particular amber that says the word grates in its title, and that is the one that you want to get your hands on these. Or obviously you can use the letterbox as I did just before. Now once again, with the grate, we literally just square ourselves up a little bit, and we need to get in here and try our very best to sit directly in the middle of those parallel lines. Now once again, I think I'm pretty close here, but it is a little bit hard to tell in some of these cases. So if you've got the space to do it, the mailbox is definitely the way to go with this. Once again though, once you have yourself in what you think is a center position, you grab your item, throw it out, and step back. And there you go. Now we have 3 objects all kind of centered in this area, and as you can see, they're all spinning on pretty much exactly the same axis and at exactly the same rotational speed. So there you go. These 3 methods are very, very equivalent in exactly where you get an object placed down. Now, once again, we just kind of creep up to the line here, and we barely want to be touching this thing, just so that we make sure that none of those are in the hold E to pick up range. And there we go. Once again, remove all of the support structure blocks from around here, and we have our very weird mangly armor stand done and dusted. Obviously, I would recommend only placing down 1 object in any block, but that is a good example of how many things you can actually drop down. Obviously, there is no limit to this. You can just keep dropping things down over and over and over again, and they would just keep stacking up, and obviously create some weird and wonderful effects. So yes, there you have it. This is how you place things very, very precisely here in SkySaga Alpha 8. I hope you guys have enjoyed that one, and I will see you in the next video. There we go. It kind of looks almost like tropical fruit arrangements.